What? We got a balance change update coming out right now in Brawl Stars. I'm going to go over all the buffs, nerfs, and more that you need to know. Let's do it. Alright, now 4 brawlers got nerfed and 4 brawlers got buffed. Should result in a slightly different meta, but not crazy changes, but definitely some of them pretty significant. Starting out with Crow, who's actually getting a really big nerf because his gadget can now only be used 2 times per game instead of 3. This is obviously going to really impact Crow, and honestly it was such a fun gadget and it really made Crow good, and I really enjoyed using this gadget, although admittedly it was definitely one of the best gadgets in the game, really unquestionably because of how overpowered it was. But personally, I do not like the way they nerfed this. This is not a gadget where you couldn't have easily just reduced the amount of shield and made it more balanced. I'm not sure why they decided to make it less times per game, because it's not like it's as entirely game-breaking. I feel like even if you have the gadget, if the stats are reduced, as long as the stats are reduced, in my opinion, it would be fine to be able to use it 3 times per game. So personally, I'm going to rate this balance change a 7 out of 10. Next is Ems, who's getting the same nerf as Crow, with Ems' gadget being reduced from 3 times to 2 times per game. Now this one for Ems I actually like a lot more, because Ems' gadget completely covered up her weakness, which was a huge weakness. Any brawler that has fast movement speed, any tank, or anyone who has a sudden jump like a Daryl or now Primo or a Bull Super or even Mortis with Cold Snake, all of those brawlers hard countered Ems because they could go directly point blank range and she would do no damage and she couldn't escape. But her gadget covered up that weakness perfectly, and basically if she had that gadget and you were that brawler, you honestly couldn't really attack her very well until those gadgets were gone. So now all those brawlers are going to be a little bit better again whenever Ems is on the field, and of course she's still going to have those 2 gadgets, and it's still a really good gadget. You could have reduced the damage, don't think that solves the problem, but now Ems has got to be a lot more selective. I think this change is a 9 out of 10 because it perfectly covers the hard counter ability that this gadget has, and now you got to be a lot more selective, and those brawlers that hard counter Ems, they got to wait a little bit, but not quite as long as before. Another really good brawler that's getting a nerf is Jackie. Jackie already got nerfed the last balance changes, and she's getting nerfed again. She honestly deserves it. I mean, she was OP before. She's still really good now. She'll still be pretty solid for sure after this, but 5.5% less health, I mean, it's going to be an impact. She's still going to have that damage reduction star power, and if you have her gadget, she's still going to have plenty of health in order to get in range in time to either get the goal, kill, or whatever objective you're trying to do. Without her gadget, now with that less health, it's going to be more risky with Jackie. Although, admittedly, it's not my favorite way to nerf her. I honestly would have liked her second star power, the damage reduction one, to be reduced, because honestly, it kind of makes the first star power not exactly pointless, but why would you use that when you can guarantee take 15% less damage as opposed to maybe sometimes dealing 15% damage to the enemy? You'd always take the guarantee as opposed to the sometimes. That's gonna still stay the same, so it's not my favorite balance change. Just an 8 out of 10 because she definitely deserved a nerf, and health is not a bad way to do it. But next time, do the second star power. Another really good brawler that's getting nerfed is Jean, and it's gonna be to Jean's gadget. Very similar to Ems, except it heals instead of dealing damage. So Jean's healing is being reduced by 30% from 1,000 to 700. I mean, it's a noticeable decrease in the amount of healing. It's not a huge, crazy change for Jean, and he still gets to use it 3 times per game, unlike Ems, even though it has the same mechanic for the most part. Although, of course, Jean doesn't have that big weakness like Ems does, so I actually think it's not a bad way to nerf this gadget, because the healing is definitely very beneficial for Jean, and I mean, Ems is hard countered by brawlers that get in close range, so she's pretty much going to use it because people will just try to get in close range with her. But Jean, no one really cares if they're in close range exactly or not. No, Jean does the same damage from medium range to short range, so whatever, as long as you can hit him, it's fine. So while this gadget is still really good because the knockback ability can just be used in a lot of great ways, the healing was reduced, and now it's honestly more balanced, so I give it an 8 out of 10. Not a perfect change, but solid. Now for the buffs, and starting out with BB, who's getting a really big buff in my opinion, and BB's movement speed is increasing from fast to very fast. In other words, from the speed of a tank like El Primo, now is going to have the same speed as a Mortis or a Crow. So BB is going to have really fast move speed. It's about a 6.5% increase in BB's move speed. If you have the home run star power, it'll be equivalent to about, I think it's a 7.8% increase in movement speed. So it's honestly a really big buff. Any movement speed buff is really impactful, especially for a close range, high health brawler. Now, BB, especially with the home run gadget, or sorry, not gadget, star power, is going to be able to move across the map so freaking well. It's honestly going to be really scary, and in fact, I think BB is going to be really strong, and it's going to be weird to have this sort of speedy brawler who also has a knockback stun. Now, while I do think BB deserved a buff, she got nerfed a couple times in a row, a couple balance changes in a row, because she was really strong. Although, admittedly, she's kind of mediocre at the moment. She's not bad, but she's definitely not great. There's a lot of brawlers in the meta that do pretty well versus BB, like Jackie or Ems. A lot of the gadgets, I mean, BB's gadget's actually pretty solid, so she's not in a bad place. So the buff is okay, but I kind of think this was the wrong direction to go with Ems, and I feel like she's going to be a terror across the field. But we'll see. So I give this a 7.5 out of 10. All right, just take one of the B's out of the last brawler's name, and that's who we're talking about now. That's right. B is getting a buff. I almost said nerf. She's getting a buff. Her attack projectile speed is being increased by 5%. Projectile speed increase buffs are actually really impactful, similar to how movement speed buffs can be. I mean, hitting more shots is obviously going to have a big deal. So if you're able to hit more shots, you're able to auto-aim a lot more with the projectile speed increase. I'm going to be honest, B already has a slow ability. In fact, she has two slows. So you're already auto-aiming a good amount. So really, was this the direction B should have been buffed? No, not at all. I think this was a pretty bad buff. It's going to get a 5 out of 10 because why? It's not the direction B really needed. Look, B definitely deserved a buff, don't get me wrong. After Honeycook got demolished, she'd been a pretty mediocre brawler. She has her places where she can shine. She's not, like, really bad or anything, but she just hasn't been great or super threatening like she could have been before with Honeycook. But that was just because of Honeycook. But really, if you had done something like a health buff or maybe increase the damage of a non-charged shot, I think that would have been fine for B. I don't really think she needed this sort of projectile speed since you're already able to auto-aim a good amount and she has two slow abilities. It doesn't really seem like the right direction. This next brawler is annoying to face but fun to play, and that's Poco. Poco is getting about a 6.1% damage buff. Poco has been a not bad brawler. Poco's very team comp specific, working really well in tank team comps, so any close range map, and in Brawl Ball is a terror. And now with extra damage, Poco is going to be insanely good in Brawl Ball, and Poco's gadget is one of the best ones in the game, and that's a great place for it. Poco is going to be so good in Brawl Ball. I don't mind a Poco buff personally, and I think damage is actually probably a decent way to go, because definitely do not want to buff the healing. That's way too good, honestly, probably, and honestly, you could nerf that, and I would be like, okay, fine, it's actually kind of crazy high. So, that's fine. Damage buff, because you're not doing the healing. You don't want to do reload, because that's also more damage and more supers. You don't really need to do health, because he already heals a ton. So, movement speed doesn't make sense. Projectile speed, whatever. So, you're pretty much left with damage. Okay, 8 out of 10. That's fine. Also getting a buff is going to be Spike. Spike is a solid brawler for sure, doing a ton of damage, although admittedly, his gadget kind of sucks. You can get a small amount of use out of it for sure in normal situations. Maybe occasional ones you can get really good, but honestly, it doesn't happen very often. It's pretty rare to get a great use out of Spike's gadget. Well, Curveballs is getting a buff by about 50%. Hard to tell exactly what that means. I will say this is a lower amount of curve than when Curveball was overpowered. It's not that same amount from back then. So don't be too worried, because back then, you may remember, or maybe not, Curveball used to be completely overpowered and it made it almost impossible to dodge a Spike like long-range attack. So personally, I'm gonna tell you, a lot of people are gonna hate this change because Curveball is just really annoying to deal with, but I can bet you they made this change because they want to make Spike's gadget more useful. And I really just don't think that's the way to do it. I get it, it's hard to kind of be creative about it while not completely changing it. I'm not really sure this is the way to do it, but maybe it is. Maybe it'll make Skip Bike Skagit a little bit more useful. Honestly, we're just gonna have to wait and find out. I'm not a huge fan of it though, so it's gonna be a 7 out of 10. Let me know what you think of all the balance changes down below. What other brawlers would you give a buff or nerf to? That is gonna be it for today's video though. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you later.